Even though I only have 3 slides, and these 3 slides are about the tables, no fancy pictures, but still I'm talking about pictures. Well, let me basically read this page. Why are we talking about this manga world here? Of course, because we are doing this symposium about manga world. This is a good answer, but I would say this is one of the answers. There are so many other many kinds of answers. And, I am, doing this paper for trying to delineate these, many discourses from a certain standpoint. And in other words, one paper should limit its own scope in one aspect, but in doing so, it is not pointless to locate its own standpoint in a wider conceptual map. There is a famous remark by sociologist C.W. Mills that in the ancient Greek, the meaning of idiot was a person who lacks public sensitivity. And this is the sociological imagination all around. And I realize that now I am afraid that the people called otaku in the world are already tired of this kind of remarks about idiocy. And I am for certain that I myself have been a kind of idiot in this very sense from my childhood. And I decided to be a sociologist to cure this kind of idioticity. But as you know, this strategy was quite long. But this is yet another story. Setting out this figure 1, let me explain the conceptual wider frame. To put the conclusion first, my ultimate goal is to relate this kind of talk upon manga worlds to the explanation of basic nature of the current society per se, because being as a sociologist, I want to know what kind of society I am living now. 4 boxes. This kind of arrangement is a jargonized way of talking about among the sociologist circle. And on this vertical axis, there can be supposed, and this is only the supposition of the text versus context binary. I am borrowing this wording from the, of course, one of the Habermas, the textbook, Habermas books, but this is only a title, the wording. And by text, I mean that the texture analysis by way of internal and the humanistic approach. And I again learned this term from Quick Kurosawa's paper. By context or social context, I mean contextual, or again, if I may use Kurosawa's term, the external approach, in which people using this manga anime as a tool for connecting people in a social context. On the horizontal axis, there can be supposed sender versus receiver binary. Again, this is only supposition. And in this case, this only supposition, the reservation of that, is actually very much critical, because the boundarylessness, that kind of nature or vagueness of these 2 sides is one of the fundamental issues of this phenomenon. So on the text and the sender side box, we talk about this type of expression. In Japanese, it has been called as hyogenron. I mean, I'm talking about these words, hyogenron, such as the quality of drawing, constellation of commas, and the technique of using the boxes for split lines, the combination of the split lines, words, and pictures, and so forth. This last issue is related to the argumentation of simplicity of the text of Japanese language. In the box of user side, we talk about this text interpretation based upon manga literacy, a practice of second creation. And this is again the indications of vagueness of sender-receiver autonomy and intertextuality, so to speak. On this, upper side, social context side, in the sender box, you see the cultural production arguments with cross-media strategy. That's what we are talking about from this morning. Production through the formula of production committee nowadays, and basic shift from package sale towards digital or internet distribution. On the consumption side, this side, you see fun activities such as cosplay, anime pilgrimage, and scanning as a counterpart of the digital distribution. Again, the sign of boundarylessness, that kind of nature of the phenomena, is committed events, which should be located in between these two sides. And in my view, why the disciplines like aesthetics, literary criticism, are sensitive on the text analysis, they also pay attention to the social context. But social sciences have been basically more ignorable on the internal text analysis. And especially on visual textuality. In the social sciences, this visual turn as an academic approach is only a recent idea. And accordingly, my intention here is to explore and to develop this approach of social contextualization with close relation to this visual texture sensitivity. And for this purpose, let me draw on one of J.T. Mitchell's works of What Do Pictures Want? And in this, Mitchell's sense in this book of What Do Pictures Want? Instead of starting with human action, we can start or initiate with pictures per se. Pictures as a subject or initiator that evokes human action and human collectivity. Therefore, this approach can lead us to not only text analysis but also to social context activities. And put it more concretely, but also put it more concretely, Mitchell delineate finally second difference. Mitchell put it more concrete terminology. He delineates three different kinds of pictures. First, totem. Second, fetish. And the third, idol, in terms of their own wounds towards humans. I mean, totems want to be a core of human solidarity. Therefore, want to be your friends, comrade, totem. While the fetishes want to be embraced by people. People immerse into them, and people attach them on their body. And finally, the idols want humans to be sacrificed for them and to be adored by them. This approach starts its analysis with pictures themselves as the initiating point of reference. So I will call this way of thinking as text subjectivism. That is why the pictures as original point of power do have the power to connect people. In this above-mentioned terminological arrangement, totem is the most familiar with the sociologists in its Durkheimian tradition, in which the totem has a symbolic power to create communion just connect people in a community as a members of this community. Here we have a terminological issues. All these pictures can be said as symbols, but yet symbols are not necessarily always pictures. So let me delineate these terminological settings here like follows. Drawing on again Jeffrey Alexander's arguments, we can call all these three pictures as the variations of icons using Alexander's term, as a more abstracted, one dimension higher, umbrella kind of conceptualization. And in this sense, totem, fetish, and idol, all these three are three different kinds of icons. And to put it from the opposite angle, Alexander's icon connote the three different phases of visualities of totem, fetish, and idol. And we should be sensitive on which phase we are talking about when we analyze the relationships between people and icons. Icons of fetish tends to refer to the intimate relationship between individuals and materials. And this is a mode of deeper individual immersion, which sometimes involves psychoanalytical mark or trauma, while totem as an icon is a good focus to investigate social solidarity in a community. Then fetish is more about personal immersion in a more otaku-like material mind relationships. Icon of idol has the ambivalent function in this context. And intellectuals has been looked down upon idols in its Francis Bacon Western tradition. Like idols of the case of Francis Bacon, and in the modern age, Adorno's disdain, the cultural industry, idol industry in Hollywood, and popular music. In generally speaking, this mode of icon in its tradition, to say the least, has to do with the intellectual's contempt on popular culture. The campaign of manga as a harmful books and regulation articles upon them, these preferences still somehow indicate the basic tendency and tradition of this day. At the same time, power of idol worship, as Mitchell mentions, is from the origin of idol as a representation of God, has been the main target of social, scientific, and philosophical argumentations. In this regard, the argumentation on idol criticism or idol destruction has ambivalent function towards the visual term discourses. While it reveals disdain and the visual communication per se, it also gives us the basis for critical thinking as to the visual communication in current society. As manga anime watcher, we do not necessarily have contempt for popular culture, of course, but also watching it in a critical way. Contemporary society is a place in which full of idol power prevails. So presumably, intellectuals want to understand or explain this phenomenon through this kind of critical thinking. In this regard, I propose that we can add the fourth mode of icon more explicitly than Mitchell's, that in the mode of icon in reflexive idol destruction. And just let me mention one example, René and Magritte painting entitled "This is Not a Pipe," as a combination of